I am so excited to share with you how I am setting up my Scrivener document for Camp NaNo, which is starting on Monday. Now, if you don't know what Camp NaNo is, there's an organization that has this challenge in the month of November called National Novel Writing Month, or for short, NaNoWrimo. And the challenge in November is to write a story with a word target of 50,000 words. Now, the organizers of NaNoWrimo decided to add additional events throughout the year that's a bit different from NaNoWrimo. So they introduced Camp NaNo, which they run in April and July of each year. Now, the difference between Camp NaNo and NaNoWrimo in November is Camp NaNo, you set your own target. So NaNoWrimo's target is 50,000 words. Camp NaNo, you make the target. So, as you might know, if you've seen any of my other episodes, I started a new project which I call my Writing Journey 2.0 project. It's basically me revamping, rebooting my writing career. And I'm starting this project, which is an epic fantasy project of mine. And I've been brainstorming and planning and plotting the story for the last couple of weeks. And you can check out my channel. I've got a couple of videos where I go into how I do it and the progress that I've made thus far. Now, because we're starting with Camp NaNo on Monday, I decided to share with you how I set up my Scrivener in which I will be writing or drafting this story. And I will be including in the description down below a free Scrivener template that you can download and use for your own projects. Now, the cool thing for me about this setup and the template that I'll share with you is it works really well if you are writing either a series, which have multiple books, or you write standalones that are connected in the same kind of universe. This way, you can keep all the stories related to that universe or that series in one Scrivener project. In fact, your Scrivener also acts as a kind of story Bible or series Bible for that project, which is awesome. So let me show you the template and walk you through what I've included, how I've set it up. Remember, you can get it for free in the description down below. With that, let's get to it. All right, so this is the view when you open the template in Scrivener. Now, I've got my theme in Scrivener set up as dark mode because that's how I prefer it. If you don't know how to change the theme, I'll quickly show you how to do it. So you go to File, there up top, and you click on Options. And then here at the bottom, it says Manage. Then you can click on that, and there you have a list of all the different themes that they have available. Or if you have your own theme or you buy a theme online or anything like that, you can load themes from your computer or import themes into your Scrivener project. You will need to restart Scrivener for the new theme to take effect, but that's how you do it. All right, so first, I just want to show you in the editor, in the main editor, how I've set things up. Usually, as a default for me, when I create a folder, the folder view shows the index cards or the corkboard view. Now, in my work in progress folder, I like to see the outliner view. And the reason for this is because I've added some custom columns to the outliner view, which really helps me, especially when I want to make sure that the scenes that I'm writing have all the details that I needed to have and to keep myself consistent and keep up with the continuity in the sense that two scenes doesn't take place at the same time if that's not how I intended it and all those kinds of things. So the columns that I've added here into the outliner view is I've added the view for the words of the scene. I've also added the label. Now, this one just says scene because I have labeled all the different types of folders as well. But ideally, when you're writing, you assign a POV to the scene. So how you do that is you right click on that scene and you go to label and then you select the POV. I've created labels for 4 POVs. You can just go in and edit the names of the POVs, and you do that by going here at the bottom where it says edit. So you click on edit and you double click on that, and then you can edit the name there. For now, I'm just going to leave it like that so you can see what I mean. So you right click, you go to label, and let's say this is my first POV. So now when we go back to the work in progress, there it says we are in the first POV character. And then the next one is a place where you can insert the participants in the scene. Now, you can put in as many as you want. You can put in main characters only, you can put in main characters and side characters, or you can include your extras or cast in this list as well. And this way you can see exactly who is where, right? And when you have like all the scenes written out, you can actually sort this outliner according to the character or the participants. So it will show you all the scenes where character X and character Y are included, then it will list them all out. And then the same with locations. You can do various locations if the scene requires it, or one location. You can be as broad or specific as you want to be. Now, the next column I call duration. Now, I had a bit of a struggle with this initially because it's kind of to do with the timeline. And because I'm setting my story in a fantasy world that doesn't work according to the same like um, calendar as we do, or I don't think they do. I haven't decided that yet. Uh, what I do is I split this column basically in two parts. The first part, I put in the duration of the scene. So the scene takes 2 hours, for example. And then on the other side of the dash, I say, what is the duration until the start of the next scene? And this way, I know exactly how much time lapses from one scene to the other. Now, this column here where it says arc, theme, or story core, it's basically just a check for me. I want to make sure that every single scene that I write has either something about the character arc, about the theme, or the story core. Now, the story core is the character. It is the character that wants something. There is an antagonistic force that stands in the way of the character getting that thing. It is the struggle for the character to get that thing that they want, and it is whether they actually get it or not. That's the core of a story, right? And then the next column is the time of day. Now, if you don't have anything selected, it will say the time of day is undefined. If you select it, there's a drop down that's the times of day. So, for example, if this scene takes place in the afternoon, and I know it takes 2 hours to complete, and there is 2 hours until the start of the next scene, it doesn't make sense for me to start the next scene and say that it starts in the morning because that timeline doesn't work. So, these two work in conjunction with each other. If you think about it that way, it might actually be better if we put it next to it, right? So that's the outline view. And you can also change the names of the scene here as well, which is kind of nice. When I am drafting though, I like to view the corkboard view, and then I will go and at the end of each writing session, or when I'm finished with the scene, I will write a quick synopsis of what happens in the scene so that I can see in a like quick eagle eye overview what is happening from one scene to the next. And the cool thing about this, sorry, I'm just going to add another scene here quickly so you can see what I mean. So the cool thing about this and the corkboard view is you can move the scenes around, and it'll move them around in the binder as well. And this way you can reorder your scenes very, very easily if you need to switch things up. And you can also move things around here as well, which makes Scrivener just such a cool program to use. All right. So now if we look at the binder as a whole, at the top is the work in progress. It is originally called the manuscript. I changed it to work in progress because it just feels a little bit better for me. I will be getting into these folders in a minute. First, I want to talk to you about the template sheets. So if we expand that folder, you will see that there's quite a lot of templates that I've added in this template. And the reason why I did that is because I want to make my life easier. So if you noticed, when I added the scenes in the work in progress folder, it automatically included the scene folder from the template. And how I did that is if you have a folder selected and you go to documents here at the top, you can select the default template for subdocuments. And for this specific folder, I've selected scenes. And I have done this with all the folders here at the top. All the character folders will automatically get a character sketch template. All the places will get a setting or a fauna sketch depending on which place you are in. So species, I named it that because, as I said, I'm writing an epic fantasy, but if you are writing a contemporary story that plays off in the same universe, or you're writing a series in a contemporary setting, you can change that to races if that's your preference. And I've got a magic system sketch and a world interaction sketch, as well as events and ritual sketches. Now, here at the bottom, you will see there's a folder in the template sheets for the plot outline. I'll show you now why I did it like that. So first, let's look at the character sketch. Now, the character sketch, it's a combination of things that I kept from the default character sketch that comes with Scrivener if you open up a new document, and I've added some other things that I use when I am putting this together. So the name of the character, their age, their species, or their race, some basic information about them, and then information about their character arc. Now, I like to include whether it's a positive, negative, or neutral arc. I will just delete the ones that's not applicable. A hard lesson is that kind of lesson where the character doesn't get what they want, but they still become a different person or a better person. A soft lesson is where they get what they want and they become a better person at the end of the story. And an ambiguous lesson is when they don't get what they want, but they get something else, or you're not sure if they actually got what they want. So it's kind of an in between the hard and the soft. So I will choose the best option for that specific character. And another thing that can fit into this ambiguous lesson part is if you have a character who goes through a character arc, and part of the lesson or the thing that solidifies the fact that they actually have learned the lesson and they need to sacrifice themselves to save their friends or to save the world or whatever, then it's kind of ambiguous, right? Because they didn't really get what they want, but they didn't not kind of, I mean, you basically just wrote them out of the story, right? So for me, that counts as ambiguous as well. Then I write down the character's flaw, their goal, how I want them to be at the end, and also the theme which they are exploring. Then I've got this thing down here, which we'll see is highlighted. Basically, below this one is where I would put the actual arc progression. This happens in the hook. This happens at the inciting incident. This happens at the midpoint. I usually don't do that before I draft. I do it after I draft. But as I'm drafting, I like to know kind of what needs to happen so that as I'm writing it, I can make sure that the right things happen at the right time. So that's what this progression thing is. If you click on that, then what happens is it will open up this file. It basically is a step by step through the entire arc of the story, what needs to happen at what plot point. Now, I got this breakdown from a video that I watched by Ellen Brock. She's an editor and she's got a YouTube channel. I'll see if I can link that video for you down below, where she explains how character arc and story arc meet, and she gives great examples and things like that. I just created this little graphic for myself and I'm sharing it with you guys now. So that's that. And then the next thing that we have in the character sketch is the backstory and then place for some notes. Then the extras or the cast sketch. Now, I included it in the template sheet. It's just helpful if you get into like book 2, book 3, book 4. You don't have to delete all the information from the previous books to input the new book's details. So basically, it's just who's the character, what is their appearance in the story, like which chapters or scenes do they feature, and notes if there's anything important that the character does or specific that they wear or anything else that you want to remember, you add it in here. Now the next thing is the setting sketch, and I think this one, yes, this one is basically the default that came with Scrivener's template sheets. I just changed the colors in the fonts and stuff that it matches the rest of the look of the template. It's very simple. The location's role in the story, to which characters is this location related, what are the seasons, any unique features in this location, what's the description of this location, and then these sights, sounds, and smells. These are very important. It's to make sure that you don't use the same descriptors over and over again to describe the same location. And then once again, there's a note section as well. Then there is a fauna and flora sketch. So this is if you have specific animals or plants that you want to highlight or that is relevant to your plot or anything like that, and you want to make specific note of it, then this is where you do it. The name of the plant or the animal, a description, their life cycle and migration. Now in this heading, I like to also include if this animal or plant is involved in a character's diet. I like to include how it's harvested or how it's prepared. Do they have like hunting parties or are they raised like cattle? And where can you find them? Why are they there? Their hierarchy, what do they eat? And also their reproduction. If you don't have any fauna and flora that is relevant to the plot or relevant to the story, then you don't have to fill these things out, right? But it's there for you if you need it. Then the next thing is the species sketch. Now, as I said, you can change this to races if you're not writing a fantasy, and you can edit all these headings if these things do not apply to your story. So sections breakdown in this regard is like if you have shapeshifters in your story and you have different types. So you have wolves, lions, and eagles, and bats and cockroaches, or whatever, then that is where you will break them down and list them. This is the different types of shapeshifters that I have in my story, or the different types of elementals, or the different types of demons, or whatever else you have in your story. Next thing is key features of this species, their lifespan. I also sometimes like to include when do they reach specific milestones in their lives, like when does puberty hit? When do they reach adulthood? When's middle ages? When are they considered old people? Those types of things, if it's relevant, obviously. There's place for government structure, religion, food, their preferences in food, what is their preferred alcohol if they actually drink it, and what is alcohol to them, because not everybody drinks whiskey and brandy, right? And also what is poisonous to this specific species. Then the next thing that we have here is the magic, the rules, the limits, the flaws, everything about the magic of this specific species. And that's why I included it here. It's not magic as in a flaming sword or a wand or a potion or a magic mirror or anything like that. We have a separate place for that, and we'll get to it now. This is specifically for the magic related to the species. Then the next thing that I like to figure out is how to kill them. Because, especially if you are looking at a fantasy series or any kind of mythical or mystical kind of creature, you don't want to end up with a villain who is like a Superman without kryptonite, right? And then there's once again a note section. The next template that we get to is the magic system sketch. Now, this is for external magics, like that mirror, the swords, the potions, the gates, whatever you want to call it. Once again, we have key features and functions of this magic system. What does it do? How does it work? If there is a specific way that it does work. And what's the cost involved if they use the magic system? If there is a cost, and I would suggest that you include a cost, and if not a cost, include a limit. And then the flaws of the magic. Then the next thing is what happens when the system breaks down or when it malfunctions. And then we've got a notes section as well. Then with the world interaction sketch, this is basically anything in the world or with the cultures that you need to know that isn't characters and setting specific. So this is things like travel, commerce, communication. This is kind of the things that make sure that your world functions properly. Then we've got the event sketch. Now, the event sketch is for any historical events or any current events that you want to make sure that you remember. Because remember, this template is for multiple stories. So when you're finished with the first book or the first story, you will include the events of this plot into one of these event sketches, and it becomes part of your story or series Bible that you can reference when you're going on to book 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So this is very simple. When did it happen? Where? Why? What happened? And what's the future impact of this event? The next one is the ritual sketch. And this is what species or race is involved with this ritual, who does it. And the ritual here, it can also be ceremonies that takes place or different festivals or things like that. What's the purpose of this ritual? What do they need to do to complete it? who actually does the ritual. And here you can separate it in who performs the ritual and who partakes in the ritual. And then what's the consequences of this ritual? So, for example, if this is a coming of age ritual that you want to include, the consequence there would be they are now adults. Now, the last template sheet in here is a folder. Now, this is plot outline, and I've separated it per book. So if you just click on it like that, then it has the book's name, then the promises that you want to make in this book, the progress of this story, and the payoff. Now, I got the promise, progress, and payoff from Brandon Sanderson. I will link his entire lecture in the description of below. It's fantastic. So, this is basically the info that you see on the folder. If you open that folder, then you will see that there's a subfolder that says weaving. And in that, you have the different beats or plot points, the big ones that appear in your story. You can obviously go and add your own if you want to make it more detailed or whatever. Now I'm going to show you how this thing actually works. All right. So as I explained, we've got the work in progress, which is basically your manuscript. And I like to write in scenes. So I've set it up to, by default, add a scene and not a chapter. If you are the kind of person who likes to break down your story into chapters as you're drafting, then all you need to do is drop down chapter and it adds a chapter. And then if you click on that one and you say add, it will add a scene inside the chapter. Okay. So the next thing we have in the binder is the novel series. So this is basically all the books that's connected in some way. I call it a series. You can call it My Universe's books or whatever. Each of these folders have subfolders in them. So you have an incidentals, which is the synopsis, the blurb, and the description of the book. Front matter, title page, copyright, dedication page, title splash, and the prologue. You can move the prologue up to the work in progress if you want to. I keep it there because to me it's most of the time sort of separate. And then you've got the back matter, which is basically just a call to action. This way, everything you need to make your books is all together. Now, the cool thing is when I'm done with this draft, and it's how I want it to be, then all I have to do is take all the folders inside the work in progress and drag it down to that folder there. Now it's going to be under book 1. My whole manuscript is there. And now I can move on to book 2 there in the work in progress. Once book 2 is finished, drag all of them down into that book 2 folder and I'm good to go. Now, the reason why I don't just write in this book 1 folder is if you write in this folder, it's not going to show you your word count progress. So for this document, I set up a target word count for the scenes in the project. If I write in this folder, you see the session target there didn't change. But if I write something in the write in progress folder or the manuscript folder, it does. So if you want to track your writing progress, this is how you would do it. The reason why I have this included in the template is specifically for future projects. If you at any time need to go back to previous books that you've written in the series, everything is in one place. And that is what is so cool about this for me. Now, obviously, if you are writing multiple series and it's all still in the same universe and you have the same species and rules and history and all those kinds of things, you can absolutely add more of these novel series. Then you've got the short story folder. This is where I will do my short stories that's related to this world or anything that needs to go into an anthology or my reader magnet. But once again, when I do the work, I do it in the work in progress. And then when it's completed, I drag it down into the relevant folder. Here are some extra things. So this is the boneyard. And I called it the boneyard because I think deleted scene sounds boring. So this is basically where you will add all the deleted scenes or things that you wrote, you still like, you don't want to delete them, but you don't know where to keep them. This is where they go. And I've also included brainstorming notes for your characters, plot, and setting. So that's the template. I'm quickly going to explain to you how you can get it. So basically in the description down below, you'll find a link to this template. Now, if you click on the link, it will open up a Google Drive folder. Now, don't click on the file called multiple story template. in the right hand corner of that file, there's three dots. You click on the three dots and you select download and you save it onto your device. Then you go to Scrivener and you open a new project. Now, if you have opened Scrivener before, then it will most likely open with the last project that you closed. So you need to go to File and select New Project. Then a window will pop up and all you need to do, it's the bottom left where it says Options, you click on it and you say Import Templates. And then you grab that template wherever you've saved it on your device. With that, until next time, may your creativity flow freely and your fingers dance upon the keys. Keep writing with joy and stay connected. Cheers.